Do you feel that? Do you feel that? Oh, shit.
Wow! All right, that was climactic. Hello, everybody.
How's it going?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here with you, man. This is exciting. Everybody watching, all like 4 of you or whoever. This is Bryan from True Mormon Quotes on Instagram. Bryan, thank you again for being here with me.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure.
This is going to be fun. So before we get started, because we are going to just be making predictions about where we think the church will be in the next 10 years, what their positions will be on certain things, that whole shebang. If you're watching this and you have a topic that you would like us to discuss, or you have an opinion about a topic that we're going to be discussing, then shoot it in the comments. Tell us what you think. Oh no, the church will have X opinion in the next 10 years, something like that. So with that all being said, Bryan, you have a pretty cool Instagram account. Tell us about it. Why did you start it? What's your goal with it? All of those questions in rapid succession, please.
Yeah, thanks, man. So yeah, I actually initially started the Instagram account. It's called True Mormon Quotes. So on Instagram at True Mormon Quotes. Started it probably back in 2018 or 2000, even maybe the end of 2017. And initially, I started doing it for a while. I felt like I was kind of maybe I was either spending too much time on it, or I was just like, I don't feel like I need to do this anymore because I'm kind of moving past Mormonism for a while there.
Yeah.
And so I actually deleted it. I just totally completely deleted my account. And then maybe like a year later, I don't know, I felt re-energized to do it again. And mainly the reason is because of talks like the one that Ella Holland gave at BYU a couple years ago about the musket fire. Just talks that I find really disgusting.
Mhm.
And the whole point of my page is to take quotes from the leaders of the church and just quote them exactly, and then put the reference to the talk so that no one can claim that I'm taking it out of context. You can go and look at all the context, right? And just start a conversation about those quotes and say, when these guys claim to speak for God, and then they say some of the following things, what do we think? Like, do we think that God said these things or not? And and let's hold them accountable for the things that they say in the name of God. Because when you claim to speak for God, then you deserve to have your words criticized as much as any words spoken by anyone ever. So
Exactly. Maybe even more so than somebody else, some person living in the rainforest with no internet connection at all. Maybe their words don't have as many consequences as people who, have a massive audience like the leaders of the church. What has been your general experience running a channel like that in terms of people pushing back on you, people not liking that you are, maybe holding a mirror up to some of these quotes? What's your experience? Experience been there?
yeah, I think the biggest the biggest pushback I get from members of the church is like, oh, you're taken out of context, or they're just mad that they think that I'm attacking them. And the point that I always make is just like, well, when I'm posting actual words, I'm just literally just posting the quote. Like the picture that I post is the quote. This is something your leader said.
Right.
I didn't say it.
Right.
The caption is my commentary, right? So below the picture, under the picture, that's my commentary.
Mhm.
But what they said, I'm just quoting them.
Right.
How are you going to get mad at me for just quoting your leaders, right?
Right.
And so that's what I always say. As far as taking it out of context, yeah, some of them, I mean, I can't post the whole talk, right? Instagram is a very limited space,
Right.
so I only have so much space I can put there. And so I try to include as much context as I can of the quotes, but yeah, a lot of times I just can't post very much. And so that's why I post in the photo, I post
Mhm.
not a link because you can't do a link, but like I'll post the reference to the talk, so you can go look it up. It's from General Conference, or it's from the Journal of Discourses, or whatever it is, and you can go find it and look it up. And I
Yeah.
promise you that the context doesn't make it better. I'll guarantee you that right now. So, the other thing that I get all the time is like people saying, a lot of other people, like evangelical Christians, come on into the comments and talk, basically are trying to like poach Mormons who are leaving, and they're like, hey, come join my church. And so I have a big beef with them, and yeah, a lot of times I'll argue with them as well. So I end up arguing with a lot of evangelical Christians as well.
Very nice. Yeah, and I guess the last question that I have for you there is, I guess, what, as you're posting a picture, as you're putting your thoughts in the caption, what are you hoping for? Like, what's your goal? What? Yeah.
I mean, a lot of, obviously my main audience is mostly ex-Mormons and post-Mormons, just to validate a lot of people. I think that's one of my main goals, is to validate their experience. Like, I've had so many people reach out and say, I heard this taught over and over and over, and now they've stopped saying it, and so
Yeah.
people around me don't believe it anymore. They don't believe it, and they don't believe that it was ever taught, because
Right.
they can't even find it. And so, just a lot of the crazy teachings that even, things like Spencer W. Kimball used to say in the 70s, if you lose your virtue, and by that he means like virginity, if you have sex, I would rather have you die. I would rather have you come home from your mission in a coffin than having lost your virtue. It's just disgusting teachings like that they don't teach anymore, and they wouldn't explicitly say now, but they did say it back then. And so a lot of people find validation in those quotes and say, like, that's how I grew up, that's the Mormonism that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And and just because that's not being taught explicitly today, a lot of people think that it's not real, it wasn't, and so they get essentially gaslit by the church and a lot of members, right? And so that's a big part of it. The other part is just having a place where we're holding on to a lot of these things that have gone down the memory hole. Like, I just don't want them to be gone. The Miracle of Forgiveness now doesn't get sold at Deseret Book. So
Yeah.
a lot of Mormons just go, oh, well, yeah, he said, maybe somebody said those quotes a long time ago. No. The prophet of the church,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
guy that he was an apostle at the time, but all the top Q15 are prophets, seers, and revelators, right? And they're sustained
Yeah.
as such. So, I mean, the guy's a prophet, and he wrote this book, and this is what he said. Like, you can't just sweep it under the rug and pretend it was never doctrine, because it was.
Right. That's a great point. I've noticed recently with my channel, some videos have been getting more attention than others, and I can tell when there are active Mormons in the comments, which I love. I'm great with that. I've noticed one thing about some of the ways that they attack me, because a lot of these have just been personal attacks, when I'm trying really hard not to actually attack what they believe in. I'm saying, this is what happened to me, this is my experience. For my own reasons, I decided to cut ties. And what a lot of people end up saying to me is, that didn't happen to me, that wasn't my experience. In which case, I always respond with, I believe you that that was not your experience. And if it's working for you, then be there. I'm on your team here. I personally think that you know yourself better than anybody knows you. So if that's where you think you should be, then that's great. I don't think that for me. So don't tell me that you live inside this skull and that you know what I think. And so it is crazy. I'm glad that somebody like you is grabbing all these quotes and keeping them from going down the memory hole. That's a 1984 reference for everybody. If you haven't read that book, it's absolutely incredible. Very short read. Yeah, go read 1984. Pause this right now. Don't even watch us anymore, in all honesty. And go read 1984. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, again, everybody, this is Bryan. I will at some point put your information in the description so that people can go and find you. I mean, at this point, you have a bigger audience than I do, so I don't know if I'm actually doing you any favors here, but I do appreciate you being here, because this is going to be a fun one.
My audience is all on Instagram, so yeah, it's a different different things. So if we cross post, that's great. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So with all of that being said, everybody who's here now, we are making predictions about what the church will tell us to be doing in 10 years. So my first topic that I wanted to discuss is the word of wisdom. This has been one that's been floating around for the last couple of years. There have been rumors that coffee is getting dropped at some point. I'm going to throw this one to you first. What do you think the word of wisdom will be in 10 years?
Have you heard of that place in Provo called Latter Day Cafe?
Yes.
so
Yes.
so like Latter Day Cafe, this place in Provo, where it's very Mormon and a lot of BYU students. There's BYU and UVU both there that are both heavily populated by young Mormons, and essentially their whole business model is like, get as close to coffee as you can without
Right.
it being coffee. All these highly caffeinated drinks, but they're not coffee. They don't come from the coffee bean. Red Bull gets mixed into some of them, and they make really cool drinks, right? They're like mixing up. It's like the BYU kids. They want coffee. They wish they could have coffee. They
Right.
want to get as close as they can to coffee, but without actually breaking the word of wisdom. So I think like that. And Jana Reese has done a ton of work on this. Who's she has, I forget the name of her blog if anyone remembers it, but she talks a lot about she talked before a lot about millennials, and now she's looking at younger demographic Gen Z and saying that essentially they just don't care. They don't care about all these little strict rules. Like it used to be a big deal in when I was growing up, like you got to have a haircut. You can't have long hair if you're a young man. And I feel like that's how it is with the word of wisdom now. It's kind of like these younger generations. They just like, coffee is negotiable, and it's my personal relationship with the Lord. And if I want to drink coffee, I'm going to drink coffee. And they've even tweaked the questions of the Temple Recommend interview to say, are you striving to live the word of wisdom? Right. That's a different question. Yeah. So now that has been changed officially. So I think some people that leaves the door open for them to make their own interpretation of what that means. Am I striving? Yeah, I mean, I drink coffee, and so are they renegotiating the meaning of hot drinks as interpreted by prophets? Really, and the interesting thing is early on, the word of wisdom wasn't really very hard and fast rule, and so I think we might be going back to that. Yeah,
I think we should open it up. Actually, I kind of want to read section 89 a little bit. Oh wait, we got a comment here. Let's read it.
Do it.
All right. Allison Bateman says, I think for sure coffee will be allowed. It will have been a test.
Totally.
Yes.
Shout out to Allison.
Yes. You are a prophet, Allison. And those lucky bastards will get to partake, just like Instagram Mormon influencers who never wear garments anymore. LOL. This is the truth. Allison is preaching the truth. Because I think exact words are important here, and maybe I'll find it quick enough, but maybe I won't. But I know that drinks of light brandy are permitted according to the word of wisdom. I know that light brandy is.
Yeah.
And as a person who I make my own beer. For fun, I make my own beer. That should be allowed. And I might even make a video at some point of just how to make your own beer. Because I think it's pretty awesome for us to learn how to do. It's so fun. But let's pull it up right now.
Joseph Smith would have approved, by the way. So yeah. So the very beginning of the word of wisdom, it starts off and it says, a word of wisdom for the benefit of the council of high priests assembled in Kirtland and the church, and also the saints in Zion, to be sent greeting, not by commandment or constraint. Right. So yeah. In other words, this word of wisdom, this section 89 of the Doctrine and Covenants, is not meant to be a commandment or a constraint on you, meaning we are imposing on you that you have to do it. It's more a guideline, as Jack Sparrow says, right?
Right. And one of the things that I love about this, it's basically it's not a commandment. They've made that very clear. It's a list of suggestions for people who want to be able to run really fast.
Yep.
They're like, you're going to run and not get tired, and you're going to walk and not faint, which I've never done that anyways on either side of me living the word of wisdom. So I don't know. I agree with the general consensus in here that coffee is going to be just fine. And I mean, maybe, okay. So here's where it starts to get a little bit dubious, is that it's like, we know that Joseph Smith was was drinking wine quite heavily on the day that he was murdered.
Yep.
I don't have those sources right in front of me, but I would be happy to throw those in the description, or if you have them close, then we can pull those up. But if you don't have them, don't go looking for it. It's fine. But we know that that was the case, and there are just too many things where it really feels more like a cultural thing at this point, that the church wants to present itself as people who are very clean cut. You know, you got the appearance, you have the haircuts that you talked about earlier.
Yep.
You typically have the clean shaven face, although we'll maybe get into that later with the whole like new logo and rebranding thing that's going on.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I have to agree with the consensus here. And I think one thing that's probably worth mentioning, when I was a very active Mormon, I would have said the church, to a YouTube video like this, I would have said the church isn't going to change any of this. This is all doctrine, and doctrine doesn't change. Because I heard for years growing up people saying maybe maybe one day gay people will be allowed to get married. And I would be like, why would they be allowed to get married? God has said that that's not the way. And the response was always, well, Black people used to not be able to get the priesthood. They couldn't even go in the temple and get ordinances, but then they could. And the answer to that was always, well, that was a policy change. That wasn't a doctrine change.
Yep.
And thanks to accounts like you on Instagram, there we have quotes of people saying things like, this is a doctrine of God, that like words that I'm not going to say that start with N are not as worthy as white men. You know, like that was doctrine, and it was taught as doctrine. So my whole view on this has changed in like the last 3 years since I left. And I think that now a discussion like this is worth having. So what were you going to say?
I think it would be hard to find a doctrine in Mormonism that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And if you showed Brigham Young and John Taylor the church today, they would say you're in apostasy. You know, not practicing plural marriage actively. I mean, technically we do have it, right? Eternal polygamy.
Right.
So a man can be sealed to multiple women while he's still alive, but not at the same time that they're still alive.
Right.
So that would be considered apostasy to Brigham Young and John Taylor. They would say the fact that you gave in and you caved to the government, and you guys are in apostasy. You care more about man's word than God's word.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they would say. And so, yeah, I think with the word of wisdom, it will be something like, instead of, it will kind of go back to being policy, and they'll say the same thing. Like, just like you said about race, and the racial priesthood ban and the temple ban, I think it will be more like that, where they'll say, well, that was the way that they interpreted it for a while there. Well, modern prophets have reinterpreted it, or we're going to find some way to sort of renegotiate with that to say that coffee, we can still justify coffee. Now that the Temple Recommend interview question specifically says, are you striving to keep the word of wisdom? Yeah, I just think people are going to find ways to reinterpret that.
Yeah. And so I want to take 1 second here and just give the Mormon Church a little bit of credit here, because changing the question like that is a step in the right direction, in my opinion.
100%.
One of the things that I really did like about Mormonism when I was there was when I was on my mission, Holland gave a talk that said, you at least get credit for trying. And it's not all just like if you don't accomplish everything, you fail. You actually get credit for trying to do your best. And I remember that really resonating with me, because I mean, anybody who served a mission knows, like, you are constantly down on yourself. Like, I could be better, you know? And it probably does get a little bit unhealthy, but I remember that opened up, that was the last general conference of my mission. And that opened me up to just kind of be able to know that I was trying and be in the moment and experience what it was like to be in another country and actually just trying to help people. So I will give them, like, I think that's an improvement, and I'm happy that they made that change, and I hope that they make more changes like that. So Tracy in the comments says, also did a little more research just a minute ago, and essentially the Pope came out and said that homosexuality is not a crime, and that the Catholic bishops should not back up or support laws that, ellipses, criminalize them, as many areas do. So I think this is something that we can move into next, because this was on my list anyways. Tracy, thank you for that comment. Oh, Minette, she just said one more, so I'm throwing it out there. Although the church has come out and kind of said it's okay to be gay, it would be cool if the leaders did the same thing and showed more outward support in it not being criminalized. Yeah, so I think that it's fair to say that in my lifetime in the church, it has become more accepting of gay people. It is not perfect yet. And a lot of people will jump on it and say, you're a bad organization. You're not perfect yet. But moving in the right direction is still pretty good, even if it's slower than everything around it. And I feel like I'm tiptoeing here. But so anyway, where do we think? I'll go first. In the next 10 years, I think that gay people will be allowed to get married and not be excommunicated. That's already kind of happening. It's no longer a mandatory reason for a membership council. It's now depends on your bishop and your stake president. So I think that that's a huge step in the right direction. And that's as of the handbook update in 2019. But an RFM made this point once, and I think he's right. Joseph Smith has only ever talked about the top third of the celestial kingdom. If you remember, in Doctrine and Covenants, the top kingdom is divided into 3 parts, and the top one is called exaltation. We have no idea what the middle one is or the bottom one is, but they're both in the celestial kingdom. And so what RFM said probably a year ago at this point, and I agree with him, there is some doctrinal wiggle room right there to allow people, allow gay people specifically, to go to the celestial kingdom, even if it's not exaltation. And exaltation doesn't really mean anything anymore because we don't get planets now.
Yeah.
You know, that was the whole goal of exaltation, is you get to be the god of your own planet. And planets are going the way of social security nowadays. Our generation is not going to get one, right?
Yeah, we're not going to get a planet. I'm out. You know.
Yeah, no.
I was thinking about going back, but not now.
Yeah, I was going for the planet, and if I don't get the planet, I'm out. So where do you disagree with me there? What's your opinion on that one?
Yeah, well, I think just to comment on what Tracy said, I think for the church to come out and say that homosexuality should not be criminalized, that would be first of all not very controversial at all. I think the only countries on earth that still criminalize it are like Saudi Arabia, you know, a couple of countries in the Middle East. So that's a very low bar. I think we're going to hopefully do better than that, and say that, you know, not only should it not be criminalized, people should be treated equally within the organization. And you know, if we were to see gay people be treated as equals truly in the church, that would mean you could be gay and you could hold any calling. You could be an apostle. You could be a leader in the church, right? That's not going to happen probably. But I think that there will be more space made for people to hold other callings. Probably not up to bishop, but I think, because I mean, women can't even be bishops, right? So there's still a lot of progress that would have to happen for gay people and women and other marginalized groups to be in leadership positions. I think that would be, that's going to be really hard, and it could happen someday, but we're talking it's going to take so long. I mean, these guys are so old, right? These guys that are leading the church right now, their whole worldview is shaped in like the 50s and 60s. I mean, these guys, that's why it's such a reactionary culture that we have in the church, reactionary to the hippies and to the 60s and to the 70s and like all the culture wars of those times, right? And so I think that I could see my prediction about you know, being a gay member of the church, I could see gay members being say married. Let's say they get married to a member of the same sex. I could see them possibly holding callings, being given callings in the ward, teaching Sunday school maybe, or having some other position of influence. Not within 10 years. We're talking maybe like 50 years or 60 years, right? I don't know. People are bad at making predictions. I have no idea, but
we're not
somewhere
prophets
down the road. Yeah, I'm not quite a prophet.
We didn't claim to be, though, so we're fine.
Just as much a prophet as Russell M. Nelson. Probably better. But in the next 50 years, I would say that's a possibility that they could be more accepted in like at the ward level, having ward callings and stuff like that, and being
Yeah.
considered worthy still.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that they would be able to get married in the temple, but it's even possible that they could hold the temple recommend, right? And like
Yeah.
serve in the temple.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some thoughts I have. If the church goes that way, it's going to be after the long dark reign of Bednar. Bednar's got to die. Lots of these guys got to die for that to happen, but it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as far as getting married in the temple goes, I think we're a long way out from something like that being the case. I mean, we're just speculating, but I mean, it's at least people our age have to be in charge, right?
Right.
And people our age have to be 90 to be in charge. So
Yeah,
that's a
exactly.
that's a problem. That's a whole other discussion, really.
And we have to find out, is the Desnat faction, are
Yeah.
Desnat people our age going to take over the church? Which way is the church going to go? Is it going to be the Desnat folks that take it over and they can become more hardcore, or is it going to be more progressive members? I don't know. We'll see.
So that's an interesting point, and it does remind me of something that you brought up. So we have a brilliant comment here from 123M Neil, who I really like as a person. This person says, I predict the church is going to divide along political lines. I don't think that you're wrong about this. I think our culture, now stepping way back for a second, our culture is so politics has become the new religion in so many regards. And I'm using Paul Tillich's definition of religion here, which is just like the thing in your life that is of utmost importance. And for a lot of people, that is politics. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see what's going on culturally there, if that were to kind of sink down into the church itself. And you start to see, I mean, who knows, maybe wards start to like, if the bishop is more to the left, then maybe he only gives the important callings, even though they say there's no such thing as an important calling. Maybe he only gives those to people who he agrees with on an ideological, political scale as well. So that's a great comment. 123M Neil, thank you for being here. And so this this kind of goes more broadly to something that I saw that you posted a while ago, which was you said something along the lines of, and I'll let you clarify this, but I'll do my best to say what you said. The church is getting more open, and I'm torn about that because it might keep people in it longer who maybe would benefit from leaving. Although, who are we to say? That's me throwing in conjecture, by the way. You didn't say that, but it may keep people in there longer, but it might be healthier. So is it good or is it bad that these changes are moving in the right direction? I think that's a perfectly good question that you posed on Instagram maybe it was a week ago or something like that.
Yeah.
That's when I looked at it and I was like, I'm doing this live stream with Bryan. I need Bryan on this one.
Yeah. That's the question of, it can be applied broadly to religion. I've heard Sam Harris make that point, just about religion in general. It's like, yeah, we don't want the fundamentalists who read the Bible and say, "Oh, slavery's okay, genocide's okay." We're gonna take a hard line, and all this stuff is literal. Okay, obviously that's bad, and that's not even compatible with modern society. Those people are just not going to fit into modern society with those beliefs. And that's why they believe that Jesus is going to come back and burn everybody else. That's the only way they can live in modern society. But I think so as the church becomes more progressive and more moderate, to the extent that it does, and we'll see what happens, it is modernizing and becoming more progressive right now. Some of these changes we've been talking about already. And as it does, it's like, yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. It's like that ends up keeping people in that otherwise would have left. Right.
Yeah.
And do those people, so like, I know people that they're like, because of the changes to the temple in 2019, it like helped them feel more comfortable about it. And also there's whole generations of people that will never know that. And because literally, I mean, we know it. And so it sounds so weird to us, but there will be generations of people that have no idea that women used to have to veil their faces, that they used to have to covenant to hearken to their counsel of their husbands as he hearkens to the counsel of the father, right? They didn't even promise to obey God. They had promised to obey their husband. And so some of those, like that sexism in the temple, they're not even going to be aware of that because you
Right.
literally can't talk about the temple outside the temple, and they're not listening to anti-Mormon sources. So where are they ever going to hear it? They're never going to hear it. And so there's going to be whole generations of people that just don't even know some of that stuff,
Yeah.
unless they start following true Mormon quotes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Go give him a follow right now, everybody. He's great.
so yeah, that's, I mean, so I'm conflicted. I think it's really good for the people that are still in it. Would I prefer to see people leave the church and find better ways? Yes. But I also recognize that for some people, the church is a good influence in their life. And like they might be better people because of the church. And so like, I don't know. Like overall, it's hard to say, right?
Yes, I couldn't agree more. You're reminding me of so when I started leaving the church, well, so when my wife and I got married, she came from a family that practiced a much healthier version of Mormonism. And I was like, yeah, but you're doing it wrong.
Right.
Like and that's the black and white thinking that Mormonism instills in you.
They
Is
weren't
like,
hardcore enough, right?
yeah, no, they weren't hardcore enough. And so it's like, yeah, I won't tell that story, never mind. But what it made me think of eventually was, imagine if I put all of my work, imagine if I put so much practice into getting incredibly good at basketball. Okay, I'm working my ass off, I'm playing basketball, I'm like, I stop traveling, I follow all the rules of basketball, and I get good, right? And then a bunch of kids come in after me, and they're like, oh man, this whole basketball thing is hard. I think we're going to move the 3-point line a little bit closer, and we're going to lower the hoop a little bit, and we're going to make it so out of bounds isn't a thing. That's complicated. And there's no more shot clock, blah, blah, blah. They make all these changes, right? And yay, now they're all better at basketball, right? And I'm sitting there thinking like, but you're not playing basketball anymore. And I worked my ass off to be good at basketball. And now I am aware that this is like a black and white thinking bias that I still have in my brain, right? I shouldn't think this way. I don't think this is a good way to think, so I shouldn't judge people for all the effort that I put into it. So that's a whole other thing. But you remind me, as we're talking about, like, is it getting better? Is it still the church? All this stuff. It's like, I don't know. It leaves me with a big question mark, like, is this better? You know what I mean?
And you know, to go back to that comment about the political divide, that is kind of very similar to what we're talking about, where there's going to be these people like you that were hardcore and they have that mindset, and they see the progressive people coming in and changing things and making it eat and starting to drink coffee and do stuff that they're not supposed to do. And they're like, that's not fair. I had to follow the rules. Like, and so you should have to follow the rules too. You know, they have this sense of like indignation. It's like injustice that these people are still able to have a temple recommend and get all the benefits of the church, even though they're not doing, they're not working hard for it. They're not earning it like I had to.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those people are going to be Desnat people that are more hardcore. And I think Desnat clearly, like, I can't think of anyone who is not alt-right that is part of Desnat, right? So all these people are politically on the right and the kind of like far right, more libertarian leaning than actually conservative, right? And
Mhm.
so yeah, that's I think it is this interesting divide that's going to be both kind of like separating people both politically and in the sense that you're talking about of being hardcore. I think that is a divide that we're looking at.
Yeah. So this is a great comment from M. Neil again. So we're going to throw it up there. Kind of didn't like the throat slitting stuff. The church has always been updating. I'm not sure it can fast enough now, though.
Yeah, I mean, with
Like,
the internet, a lot of people know about I went to the temple in 2007.
yeah.
So I didn't have the penalties when I went through. Those were eliminated in 1990. But that information's out there. If if you know where to look, um, and if you're interested in the history of the temple endowment ceremony, you can find, an article by, I always forget his name, if it's David John or John David, but John David Berger wrote an article called "The Development of the Mormon Temple Endowment Ceremony," and I mean, he's an active member of the church. It goes in very in serious detail all the way back to the beginning of the endowment. What do we know? What was the initial ceremony like? To the extent that we know, it wasn't written down. Joseph just taught it to Brigham and some of the brethren,
Right.
and so it was almost like oral tradition being passed on
Right.
for a while until it was codified and written down. But like he documents all the changes. You know, the even before that, like the oath of vengeance against the martyr, or against the people that killed Joseph Smith, and against the government for not taking, you know, their claims for redress. And so, yeah, there's a ton of stuff that has been in the temple that has been changed, which is really weird. And even in 2019, there were changes. So yeah, that's a great comment.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again. 123 M Neil. All right. So moving on to our next topic. Where's my pen? Okay. So women receiving the priesthood. This kind of goes in with the one that we were just talking about, which is why I think this is a good one to go to. But remember, this is next 10 years. Oh, and I should mention, I wrote Aaronic priesthood because I think if they're going to get one, it's not going to be the best one.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely
now,
not.
I will throw this out there, and Jared from My Spiritual Life says this all the time. He's I love My Spiritual Life. Go watch them and follow them. They do great things. I love them. Something that he says all the time. He says ex-Mormons shouldn't even be complaining about this, like, because we don't think it's real, right? We don't think the priesthood is a thing. So that's like leaving a club and then complaining that they didn't give their magic secret power to the women, right? It's like, why won't you let the girls be Jedis? They just want to play too. You know what I mean? But putting myself in their shoes where they think that it is a real power. Yeah, like
that's exactly what you're saying. So it's not that I think that the priesthood is real. It's that I think that the effects that has psychologically on people who do think it's real and have been indoctrinated to think that it's real, that's the problem. So when you're a young girl growing up in the church, you see that only men are leaders in the church, really leaders that actually have, you know, impact on the decisions that the church makes and have the ability to even be in those leadership positions. So, and even just as a young girl passing the sacrament, why are only boys passing the sacrament? It just, it even though it's not a real thing, and I don't think it has any real efficacious power, it still affects young girls in the church and their own self-esteem and what they think about themselves and how they feel about how they fit into their organization that they deeply care about. They care about the church, even though I don't. And so that's why it does matter what does it matter to me what the church does any day of the week? No, but it matters to the people that are in it. And there are a lot of people that I love that are still in Mormonism. And that's why it matters. It matters what they do. And it matters that it does become a more healthy system. It's why John DeLynn cares, right? About trying to push Mormonism to become more healthy because he cares about the people that get affected by it. So, yeah, I think for that reason, it does matter. I don't think women are going to get the priesthood in the next 10 years. Not any kind of priesthood. It's going to be a long time. I think Bednar has to die.
Yeah, so I was talking to a friend about this who went through the thick of it with me on this whole leaving the church together thing. And he's convinced that women are getting the Aaronic priesthood in the next 10 years, which would be interesting. I think they might lose a lot of people, but would be interesting. Somebody said Nielsen clan. Oh, wait. I clicked on the wrong one. Sorry there. Do you know much about the 2019 changes, Sterling Van Wagen? I don't know what you mean by Sterling Van Wagen. Do you know what that means, Bryan?
Yeah. So Sterling Van Wagenen was the guy that made the temple videos. So he made the the newer ones that were in the temple up to 2019. And in 2019, I haven't actually been to the temple since then. So my understanding is they no longer use the videos, but they use like kind of almost like a slideshow in the presentation rather than
that sounds more boring.
And here's
than
why.
the video.
So a lot of people this is speculation. I really don't know the reason why they switched, but Sterling Van Wagenen created those videos, and then it came out that he molested Sean Escobar, who went public with it, and he went on Mormon Stories and told his story. And it just so happens that, you know, a couple months later, the temple switched from using Sterling Van Wagenen's videos to doing this new thing. So that's why the connection with Sterling Van Wagenen. And I think that I don't know. That's speculation, but it certainly makes sense. I mean, a lot of evidence, you know, some evidence points to that.
Yikes.
So yeah, and there's speculation that he molested his granddaughter. And I don't know, you know, this person probably knows more than I do. I listened to Sean Escobar's story on Mormon Stories, and then Sean Escobar has done a lot in the ex-Mormon space since then. He did a lot of podcasts, and so yeah, I listened to his whole story, and he actually he recorded, kind of like the Joseph Bishop thing. He went and recorded, and that's why Sterling got caught. You know, he made a confession on the audio recording, and it was like an hour long or more audio recording that Sean Escobar recorded him. So anyways, that was back in 2019 that all came out publicly. So it is speculation, but yeah, there's a good argument to be made, because Sterling Van Wagonen was like a BYU professor, and he was very connected, and he was responsible for directing those new temple videos. And it's like the church dumped all this money into him making these videos, and then all of a sudden they're not using them anymore, and it's like, yeah, seems like it has something to do with that.
Yeah. Okay. I need to turn my attention to a comment right now that I think needs to be addressed. So I don't know what all the context is here, but Cindy, you don't know what this person understands. This is the problem that we're talking about. Please stop pretending like you know what people are saying, because this isn't nice. Like, stop doing this. Please stop doing this.
Allison's probably made a handful of comments. I don't know how you could surmise, or
right,
evaluate a person's understanding of the church in a handful of comments on YouTube. So
you don't know what Allison's experience is. So please don't say things like this, because it makes people feel like you don't care what they're saying. And this is what we tried to mention at the beginning of the video. Okay, moving on to women not receiving the priesthood in the next 10 years, because it probably won't happen. Okay, the historicity of the Book of Mormon. I feel like we're already seeing things changing about this.
Yeah.
They're already kind of saying things like, well, it doesn't really matter. They're slowly changing. What was the I should remember this, but it's at the top of my head right now. The Book of Mormon, the introduction to the Book of Mormon, there was a change. What was remind me what the change was?
Are you thinking of the principal ancestors, where
yes.
Yeah. It used to say, something like, essentially the descendants of Lehi it used to say something like, the Native Americans are the descendants of the children of Lehi, and now it says something like, are among the principal descendants or something.
Yeah. So it used to say the Native Americans are the principal ancestors of Lehi, and now it says they are among the ancestors. So not even principal anymore; they're just some of them, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen this change. I remember Holland gave a talk a while back that said this continent was reserved for people who were following Christ and wanted to be here and wanted to follow him, right? This continent was empty when Nephi arrived, which, okay, I struggle with this because who is it that like Mosiah or like the sons of Mosiah discover? It's like, I had it on the tip of my tongue a second ago, but essentially the
Jaredites?
No, the Jaredites are way before. It's the I'll remember it in a second, but essentially at some part in Mosiah, they're walking along and they find this other group of people who have this record that they didn't know about.
Oh, the people of Limhi.
The Mulekites.
Mm-hmm.
The Mulekites. And essentially, the Mulekites were never part of the Nephites. They were another group that somehow came across and whatever. So if the continent was bare when Nephi arrived, like Holland said in that talk, and like it says in Ether that it will be left empty until a chosen people comes across, the Mulekites must have some Lehi-like story that involved. Anyway, we're getting off in the weeds here. But my whole point of bringing up that portion of the introduction to the Book of Mormon was this used to be a document that we thought was an ancestry, a story about these native people. And now the church is quietly changing that to say, well, it's not all the people. It's just, the people are among the people that were already here. And so that's the first step of stepping back from the historicity of the Book of Mormon. And there have been more recent ones.
Yeah, like, this last, I think it was, I can't remember. It was in the last couple of years. President Nelson was speaking at it, not general conference, but he was speaking at a mission president conference. So every year, they send out new mission presidents to new missions, right? And they come in. They all come to the MTC, and a lot of the apostles speak, and they're giving direct instruction to the mission presidents. And a lot of those talks get recorded and get published in church news as well, or at least snippets of them do. And one of the things he said there that got a lot of attention and that got published in the church news, he said, this is a quote from that talk that he gave. It said, "There are some things that the Book of Mormon is not. It is not a textbook of history. Although some history is found within its pages, it is not a definitive work on ancient American agriculture or politics. It is not a record of all the former inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere, but only of particular groups of people." So he's not stepping all the way back from, he still believes, you can tell he still believes there's some historicity there.
Right.
But now, there's so much, just, go look up Michael Coe's interview on Mormon Stories, or, look at any archaeologists talking about the Book of Mormon, or just anybody exploring this topic. The subject of DNA is a huge topic as well. There's no evidence for, especially when we're talking about the numbers involved in the Book of Mormon, millions and millions of people dying in battle among the Jaredites in the Book of Ether. And then, same thing, maybe not the same numbers, but like hundreds of thousands, probably more than 1 million people dying at the Hill Cumorah, which we're not seeing that around New York State, where Joseph Smith found the plates. So there's a lot of stuff that's just not historical. But you can see here Nelson taking a step back and trying to say, well, it's not a textbook of history.
Right.
Okay, but
Right.
but when you're making specific historical claims that can be evaluated and falsified, I don't know. How are you going to even claim any history with it?
Right. Right. And so I'm actually working on a video where I do this, because I would love it if the church would stop saying that the Book of Mormon is literal. I think that you could actually, like, I'm thinking of King Benjamin's speech, which is what I'm going to be focusing on in this video. I think there's good advice in there. I think there's legitimately good advice in there. And I think it gets lost in the archaeology of it all.
Yep.
We're not able to look at that. We're not able to look at the tree because we're focused on the untrue forest.
Yep.
But if we could just say, it's a magical forest, it's a Harry Potter forest, just walk in there and see what you interpret. I think that would be a huge step in the right direction. And I actually think that this would be a good change. It would. Now, man, we're getting good comments tonight. Not sure how you would spin a story that the BOM is not historic without leaving Joseph Smith looking like a con man. Yeah, well, he did a lot of other things that made him look like a con man. So this isn't necessarily his biggest issue. But yeah, that they kind of have to hold on to it a little bit there. And I think that's why Nelson is not saying totally this is fake. He's saying there are parts that are historical, there are parts that maybe aren't, but you do end up leaving Joseph Smith looking like a real liar.
Hard to make Joseph Smith not look like a con man.
Honestly, but, everything he did.
It's they kind of purposely leave it vague and up to interpretation, right? And I think this is not my idea. I've heard John Dehlin say this. I've heard other people say this, but they do it on purpose in a lot of ways, because they want to keep the older generation who's convinced that it's historical, but they also want to keep the younger generation who's open to, science and understanding that this just doesn't work. It's just not possible. And maybe they want to open the door a crack to say, some of these young people, you can interpret it metaphorically if you want to, and you can still stay. Because we need your tithing, and we need you to stay, and we need you to do callings, and we need you to do service. So stay with us, even though, and so they want to talk out both sides of their mouth to both groups of people, and they want to be able to keep everybody and try to make it a space where people can have different ideas, and that's okay. I love that approach. I think they're doing it really not very well. And I don't think, there's still obviously at this point, the top leaderships of the church would never approach that topic in a way that could really open the door to believing that the Book of Mormon is metaphorical. It
Yeah.
has to be literal for them.
Right.
But I do think that's a possibility. Yeah, I don't know about 10 years, but we're going to see more and more
Yeah.
non-literal rhetoric in the next 10 years, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think if they're stepping back a little bit now, let's say they're 10% stepping back, maybe in 10 years, maybe they're to 50% or 60%.
Yeah.
I don't personally know any members who read the Book of Mormon as a metaphor or who have read the Book of Mormon as a metaphor who are still active right now. I think it's a slow way to walk people right out of the church because, you have people who are there because they think it's true, and you have people who are there who like how it makes them live.
Yep.
And I was a person who was there because it was true, and a lot of people like me have left in recent years because we were slowly figuring out that it might not be what it claimed to be. There are a lot of people who are still there because they like how it makes them live. They like the community. I've noticed that in my life. I sometimes wonder, like, how do I get a community like that? An instant family? That's incredible. I don't know how they do it. That's brilliant. And people need that, where humans are social creatures. We're very tribalistic. We want to be around people who we consider to be like us. And so I get it. But you're going to lose the people who are there because they think it's true. And I got bad news for you. That's a lot. That's most of us, because the one pitch that the Mormon church had was, yeah, but you can ask God and we're true. And it's very spooky to go watch, documentaries about Heaven's Gate, where people are, they're listening to this Applewhite guy, and he's saying, "Go into your closet, close the door," and he's speaking so softly, like we're used to, close the door, ask God if I'm His servant, and He'll tell you. Don't ask me, don't ask your neighbor, ask God, and He'll tell you. And then later, He is the reason that all of the people in that cult are dead. Like, it's insane. I have those clips. I'm clipping them together. I will eventually release the video of him saying all of that.
Heaven's Gate is an unbelievable story.
Heaven's Gate is very creepy, but yeah. So anyway, that took a dark turn. Historicity of the Book of Mormon.
The last thing I'll say about that is, I think if I were to try to steel man the position of somebody like Patrick Mason, who's very much recognizes that the Book of Mormon is not historical, or at least very open to that, possibility and that idea. If we hyper focus on, like, if we look at the Old Testament and we hyper focus on it being literally historical, meaning these things actually happened the way, we're taking it at face value and we think this story really happened this way, we're losing some of the point of the message, I think. Like, for Mormons, we were taught, or at least I was taught, my interpretation was, if similar to yours, it sounds like, if it's not historically accurate, like it didn't really happen, then it's not true.
Yeah.
Like, what makes it true is that it's historically accurate and real.
Yes.
And it really happened. But I guess a lot of people have the capacity to reinterpret what truth is. Like, what does it mean for something to be true?
Right.
What if it has utility in my life? Like Patrick Mason might say something like, the core message or the principle or the theological teaching that the story gets across, that's where the truth is. That is the thing that you're trying to get out of it. And if you hyper focus on the details, then you're missing the forest for the trees, right? You're hyper focusing on this detail about, oh, well, there couldn't, like, it's impossible. Where would you put all the poop if you had all those animals on the ark? Then it's like, like, he's just like conceding that point, and he's just saying, it's a ridiculous story. It's preposterous. That could never happen. But if you just worry about that, then you're missing the value of the story, which is
Right.
maybe some other interpretation. I don't know. And so I'm not saying that I totally agree with that perspective, but I think that there's the possibility to do that with the Book of Mormon and still, I mean, and in that sense, Joseph Smith doesn't come out looking like any more of a con man than the the people who believe and promote the Bible. It's like we already know that the stuff that happened in the Old Testament is impossible. So, and yet a lot of people believe it, and some people believe it's literally true.
Right.
And for them, it would be a big shelf breaker if it wasn't. But there's a lot of people that also have reinterpreted it metaphorically and say like, well, what are the lessons we can pull from these stories? And they're myths, they're legends, they're stories, you know. And we
Yeah.
could maybe do the same thing with the Book of Mormon.
Absolutely. No. So anybody new to my channel, I've gone over Adam and Eve, and I've gone over Noah and the Ark very recently, and I've given my metaphorical interpretations of those. And yeah, so go check those out. Not now, at a later day. Just go bookmark them or something. There's one thing that I want to read before we move off of the historicity of the Book of Mormon, and it is this. I told the brethren that the Book of Mormon was the most correct of any book on earth and the keystone of our religion, and that a man would get nearer to God by abiding by its precepts than by any other book. They're going to have to do something with that one. Yeah. They're going to have to do another good old change to the introduction of the Book of Mormon there, because most correct of any book is a pretty high standard to then say most correct and then like ... open parentheses. He was speaking metaphorically, close parentheses, of any book. You know what I mean?
They've already redefined what translation means. So maybe we could just redefine what correct means. And you're like, oh, we were talking about spiritually correct, the doctrines in it, not the historical details. So
just like they did with spiritual mind or spiritual eyes,
your spiritual eyes, right?
Yeah. They didn't see it with, they saw it with their eyes. They're spiritualized. Do I really need to clarify between the two? Oh man, we're getting dumber just by the moment. So the next two things that I had were actually things that you just touched on. It was historicity of Adam and Eve and historicity of the flood. The flood, we can throw that. I don't see that being an integral part of Mormon doctrine, but Adam and Eve is important here because that's what the temple video is. Although now I'm learning that it's a slideshow, so that's sad.
Right.
But this is an important part. I just did a video on this, and there were people in the comments saying like, I never understood it to be literal. And I think that's cool because I don't know how you could walk through LDS theology and not take it literally. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah.
What was your experience? Did you take this story literally when you were active?
Yeah, I did. And I think I know that there are people who have not taken it literally since like, for a long time. But I did. I don't know why. I took everything. I took a lot of things literally, I think. So the Adam and Eve thing is interesting though, because it's used so much throughout the Book of Mormon too, like 2 Nephi 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always referred back to, and yeah, I guess you could just totally reinterpret that and say like, well, it doesn't have to be. But there are a couple things in Mormonism that have to be literally historically true. One of them is the Tower of Babel. Right. Because otherwise, why did the Jaredites leave? And the whole story of the Jaredites and the brother of Jared is all tied up with the Tower of Babel. So unless you're going to reinterpret, unless you're going to somehow, you'd have to do a lot of mental gymnastics on that one.
Yeah.
The other thing, the age of the earth, which is one of the things you mentioned there, that is specifically spelled out in Doctrine and Covenants 77, verse 6, where it says, it's the question and answer section of the Doctrine and Covenants where he says, what are we to understand by the book which John saw, which was sealed on the back with 7 seals? And he's talking about Revelation. And he says, we are to understand that it contains the revealed will, mysteries, and works of God and the hidden things of his economy concerning this earth during the 7,000 years of its continuance or its temporal existence. So that is pretty clear that the earth is only going to exist for 7,000 years, right? And so that one's tough for Mormons to ever wiggle away from, like the age of the earth and that kind of and because that lines up, it presupposes a literal Adam and Eve, right? Because it lines up with the genealogy, or at least the traditional understanding of the Old Testament being 4,000 years from the start of the Old Testament to Jesus, and then 2,000 years since Jesus. So we're right on the edge. The second coming's right around the corner any day now, because that's going to be 7,000 years, and so that'll be the millennium. So yeah, it's hard for Mormons to get away, in my opinion, from a literal Adam and Eve, because it's built into so many of, and just it's built around so many of those stories that I think it has to be taken literally. But I don't know. Some people can reinterpret that. Maybe Patrick Mason can do it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. If anybody can, he can. There is, I'm not remembering the verse right now. If this sounds familiar to you, confirm it to me. But I remember Nephi, when he was going to get the plates or somewhere thereabouts, saying, this record contains a genealogy of my father all the way from the days of Adam to the days of my father Lehi, or something like that. I know that that's in the Book of Mormon somewhere. So, we're even like the historicity of the Book of Mormon is so intertwined with Adam and Eve that you have to do them both at the same time, and you have to do it slowly.
Yeah.
This something that's interesting that you were kind of talking about is how when I was growing up, actually, I'm going to turn to some funny comments at the moment, because there are some people saying things that are making me laugh. K-Bay says, I'm arriving late to the word of wisdom discussion. Too bad there's no mention of not letting animals poop in your drinking water. Could have saved countless lives.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong. The Nielsen clan wants us to go over the doctrine of skin color as a curse. So that should be fun.
And that one, I mean, that also relies on a literal reading of the Old Testament, right? Because you have to read Noah, and so Noah has to be a literal historical figure, and then his son Ham has to be a literal, and the whole story of him seeing Noah naked because he was drunk in his tent, which actually combines two discussions: the word of wisdom and so Noah got drunk. That's one thing. But then Ham saw him naked, which apparently was like a bad thing. I really don't know why, because I'm not well versed enough in the Hebrew Bible to know. But something about him seeing his father's nakedness that put a curse on Ham, and that's the origin. And so there's dispute. Some people will say, well, Ham did something bad to earn this curse, whatever. The point is, Ham got a curse put on him, and the other brothers did not. So Shem and Japheth, or whoever, did not have that same curse. And so the lineage of Ham was cursed, and that's Mormons believed up until 1978, basically, that's where black people people descended through Ham, and that's why they couldn't have the priesthood, because essentially they were actually, at least that's one interpretation of it. There's other, there are other explanations as well, but that's like the most traditional, and it's not just unique to Mormonism. Other versions of Christianity also fall into that, where they say, Ham and then Cain came through that line, and so it's all or Cain was
the originator of that.
Yeah, maybe it was because of Cain actually that the curse, and so there's other theories out there about why that happened. But anyway, there was a curse somehow.
And I mean, call me crazy, but I think there might be a contradiction here. How is it that Article of Faith number 2 can be a man should be punished for his own sins and not Adam's transgressions, and yet we can have a doctrine that goes from line to line where you are literally being cursed in your skin color is the mark of a curse, essentially, of something that Cain did or Ham did, or Allison is right there with me. How is this a thing? You know what I mean? Like, and again, you're the expert on this because you're True Mormon quotes, but I know that Brigham Young said that this is a result of Cain, and that I don't want to say his quotes, but anybody can.
Cain,
I mean, maybe you can jump into that with your channel or your page over the next couple of days. Some Brigham Young quotes for the people in this audience. There are 26 of us, which is actually blowing my mind right now. But so that's
Yeah, that
I-
one's. I mean, that's tough. That's a direct contradiction, right? And
Yeah.
so, I think the mental gymnastics are what you just said. Like, it's a mark of the curse. So dark skin is no longer. It doesn't mean that you're cursed. It's just
Right.
a mark of the curse that's still there because
Right.
I don't know why, but like for some reason you still have the mark of the curse, but God has removed the curse now. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know how they exactly feel comfortable with that, but that's what they would say. Is that,
Right.
well, that's just a mark. Dark skin is the mark of the curse, and those
Right.
racist verses are still in the Book of Mormon. So
Yeah.
that's, I mean, yeah, Second Nephi 5, whatever verses 22. I don't remember.
They're
Second
still
Nephi
there.
5. It's still there. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. So, okay, Cindy, you're saying you've heard otherwise about the curse stuff. I'd love to hear what that is. One quick thing. At least, if we're going to be as generous as we can possibly be, this curse, which didn't allow black people to have the priesthood or to go into the temple, at least lasted from Cain, according to Brigham Young, until 1978.
Yep.
So even if you want to say, well, it's not a thing anymore, it's not a curse anymore, it's over, it at least lasted that long.
Or Joseph, with the exception of Elijah Abel and a few people that Joseph Smith ordained to the priesthood. Yeah.
Right. By accident, if I
Yeah, it
remember
was an
correctly.
accident.
Yeah. He couldn't tell. He was colorblind. Okay, so that is everything that I have on my list right now. Okay, so there's a lot of comments right now about me that I should ban Cindy. I am perplexed about if I should do this. I'm just going to do this on the air so that everybody hears my voice.
I don't know.
I think that Cindy's presence here perfectly illustrates what we are talking about. And so I think that she should talk as loud as she can talk, and we should all see what she's saying, and we can all make up our minds if she's saying the right stuff or if she is not saying the right stuff. That is my own personal belief.
I like it. It sounds like Cindy's a true believing Mormon.
Yeah, I think that she is. I think that she's been a member of 20 years.
Thanks, Cindy, for listening. Appreciate it.
Yes, I'm not coming at you, okay? A lot of people want me to ban you. I'm not going to ban you, okay? Just please don't attack people personally or pretend like you know what their experience is. But as long I don't know what you mean by this, whether it's leave the chat or leave the church, but I hope it's both. No, I want you here. I want you talking. I want people to read what you have to say because it illustrates perfectly what I'm saying the problem is. And so thank you for being here. I'm sorry for everybody who's annoyed by her. And everybody, please. Okay, I'm gonna say this right into this microphone. Be nice to Cindy. Okay, yeah. Be nice.
Agreed. We've all been there. I don't know if we've all been obnoxious in YouTube live chats, but we've all been deviant.
We've all been there. I am no better. I have been just as bad. I have been worse. Please be nice to her. It's my opinion. Now I'm just going on a small little rant.
Please.
Compassion for people who still believe in Mormonism, just as all of us who are in this chat once did, is compassion for our past selves. I don't think that we can truly love our past selves without having some place in our heart for people who are still right there. Okay. And Cindy, I believe that you are a nice person in person. I'm sure your grandkids love you. Everybody be nice to you. And you please be kind and compassionate to everybody else in the chat. And if you do that, I will not ban you.
Well said, man. That's I agree with that. Like we've all, it's funny when you become, whenever we learn something new or we like wake up from we've had a paradigm shift, right? All of a sudden we become, or it's easy for us to become like, oh, I'm so much more enlightened, because I just had this breakthrough. And now everybody who hasn't had that breakthrough, even though I was just like them 5 seconds ago, now they're
Right.
all so stupid.
Right.
It's just
Right.
silly.
Yeah. I hate to shout this person out again, but from my spiritual life, it might have been Morgan, but maybe it was Jared. I don't remember who, so I'm going to give them both credit for this. They say, man, I hate Mormons. I can't believe they believe the thing that I believed 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And
It's a great point.
that's as good as anyone could say it. So
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have, okay, so I'm throwing this to you, Brian, and then I'm throwing it to anybody who's in the comments. Do you have any doctrines or policies or just general church practices that you would like to make a prediction about for the next 10 years? And the same question goes to everybody in the comments. So think of a question.
Yeah. This is one you and I talked about a little bit before we got on air, but tattoos and piercings.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I think that in the next 10 years, that one is probably the most likely of all of them to be, especially with the most recent statement that basically took out a lot of the explicit language.
Mm-hmm.
And really, the prophet most responsible for that language against tattoos and piercings, except for one piercing in the ear of a woman, was Gordon B. Hinckley.
Mm.
So I think that with Hinckley not around, it's been lightened up a little bit. Yeah, like 123 Neil says it's already happening. Yeah, it is, because that recent statement it changed the words in the For Strength of Youth to take out explicit references to tattoo or I don't remember exactly what it says now. Maybe somebody can quote it, but it says now more like, hey, use the Spirit as your guide, and you need to make decisions. And it still kind of like discourages people from getting tattoos, like be careful not to permanently disfigure your body, this kind of thing. But it's not explicitly anymore saying thou shalt not get tattoos, thou shalt not have second piercings. So I think we're going to see a lot more women in the church get, and actually I'm already seeing it. I live in Utah. I know so many Mormon women, multiple piercings in their ears. The bishop's wife in my current ward has tattoos all along her ear. Even other ones, even nose piercings. I think all that stuff is going to be a lot more common. I think tattoos are going to be way more acceptable in the next 10 years. So
Yeah.
Among Mormons and people who are active and have a temple recommend.
Yes. And okay, so you sent me a picture, and
Yeah, this is great.
Here's the thing. I don't know how to show it right now.
Okay.
I don't know how to show it. So if you wouldn't
either.
mind, no, I don't think it's not happening. It's not going to happen. If you want to, at some point after this video goes, if you just want to put it in the comments, like a link to it, or well, you can't really put links in there. Send it to me. I'll put it in the description. But
Okay.
yeah, we'll do that. He sent me a picture. It's like the new logo. You explain it. You did a much better job explaining it anyways.
Yeah, well, the church's new logo is, so I read this. First of all, I read this quote from President Uchtdorf, or Elder Uchtdorf. Now he got demoted, where he said, and this is from he was introducing the new For Strength of Youth, talking about tattoos, piercings, that kind of stuff. And he said the best guide you can possibly have for making choices is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the strength of youth. And so I was like, that's interesting, because we've got the new logo of the church, which is objectively, pretty much Jesus not following the standards. So let me see. Actually, I might be able to share my screen. Let me look.
I'm working on it right now. I think I might have figured it out. Oh, nope, not gonna happen.
Is mine? Am I actually sharing it?
You did it.
There we go. So
add to stream. There it is.
This is Jesus. And we can see Jesus is breaking a lot of rules. I mean, Jesus is wearing something immodest. So first of all, we got porn shoulders going on. We've got him with long hair, so that wouldn't have flown early. And actually, long hair and facial hair, you can't have it BYU as a man, and you can't have it as a leader of the church either. If you're going to get called as a bishop, they're going to make you shave your face, right? So, and you can't have long hair like that either. So, so that's already Jesus. Jesus can't be a leader of the church. So this is a problem, because he's supposed to be the leader of the church. Also, not to be too mean, but Jesus does have multiple piercings. Okay, so I think we've got to acknowledge that Jesus is breaking a lot of the rules here.
Jesus was pierced.
Jesus,
Oh,
yeah, Jesus
God.
has multiple piercings.
That's
He's
as bad
got
as it gets right there.
he's breaking all the rules. So if Jesus is the example, I think we're fine. You know, tattoos are questionable, but we're fine to get multiple piercings. We're fine to have long hair, beards, all that stuff. So.
Yeah, and we can have piercings as long as they're here.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, a little
Jesus.
bit
Man.
unconventional
Yeah.
of piercings, but you know, you can have some.
If there's a hell, we're now going there. So I'm
100%.
yeah. Does the strength of youth mention anything specific about not sharing your titties? I don't know what that means. I'm gonna say no. I don't think it uses the word titties, actually.
Define sharing. You know, we're gonna need more information on this.
Yeah, define, please. All right. Okay. I haven't seen anybody in the chat. I know. We are very sacrilegious. Bradley, shout out to you. I love all of your comments on all of my videos. Thank you, man. And this person says yes, nipple action.
Yes, nipple action is fine.
I think nipple action. I mean, I think we're all on board.
Hashtag free the nip.
Okay, so without any more, I think we did it, man. An hour and 15 minutes. That's a pretty long time to be talking. I'm sure everybody is sick of us or
getting there.
Yeah, or getting there. So thank you. Okay, wait, I have to point out one more thing. You guys look like you're from South Park. I don't know what that means. This person says no tattoos because body is a temple, etc. Plastic surgery? ? No problem.
Yeah. Good point.
A little weird. I'll give you that.
I've got my theories about plastic surgery, but I'm sure you can hear them on True Mormon Quotes sometime.
Yeah. Everybody. Okay, so one last time, tell everybody where they can follow your Instagram page. I will put it in the description. But where can people find you? Yeah,
so I'm on my page is on Instagram at true_Mormon_quotes. True Mormon Quotes. And yes, we are from South Park, so we are actually cartoon characters.
Yes, we are. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I still don't know what this means, but
I don't know. I think it's a compliment.
I think it's a compliment. Look, she hasn't said anything. She didn't say that it's not a compliment. So
I'll take it as one.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. If you wanted us to talk about something but we didn't, put it in the comments, and maybe we'll do another one of these. Maybe it'll just start being like every once in a while you and I just get on and talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Anytime, man. Let me know.
Yeah. This has been fun. So everybody, goodbye. Thank you for being here and have a good night.
Later.